Madaraka Day celebrations. Joining me in studio right now, to my immediate right, is Victor Oboni. Thank you very much for joining us, and happy Madaraka Day to you.
Happy Madaraka to you.
We also have Franklin Mukwanja. Thank you so much for joining us. They are all political analysts and also current affairs analysts. Thank you very much for your time. So we'll start with what's happening with Miguna. Is it unnatural, or is it natural that he would take a JPEG instead of Excel list of signatures of his supporters? I mean, is that like a gaffe, or he has been waiting for this day for so long. Then one small mistake.
I think according to Miguna himself, he is an attorney of high repute. And very well experienced, and I don't expect him to make such for lack of a better word, silly mistakes. For having read the regulations and the law pretty well, and understood in what format and what kind of documentation he required to present to the IBC. I think he's a maverick, and we're seeing this exactly the way Abdul Badida also plays his politics,
right.
and they are pulling off this. And I will not be surprised that he shows up just soon after the governor or the front runner in Mike Sonko has presented, so that they can also enjoy that crowd. Because they rarely have a crowd to address. And I think this is tactical from Mavericks, like himself and the likes of Abdul Badida. So he will come back with the right thing, I'm sure, at the end of the day.
He just doesn't have the crowd.
He doesn't have the crowd to address. So you have to do a timing to, just tiptoe after you are, some popular guy like the present governor or Mike Sonko, to make sure that you have someone to speak to.
If that indeed...
Otherwise, you guys just to have an interview for 3-5 minutes, and over is done. So he needs some airtime today.
Very interesting view. Victor, is that what you think?
I will agree with them. It is deliberate mediocrity. I mean, the intention is just...
Because it is Miguna.
He understands, he knows the law, the regulations are clear, so he merely wants to create a drama out of nothing. So it's deliberate.
It's deliberate.
But it's at the same time embarrassing. I don't think it's helping him much.
Actually, because the internet is going wild with, him being, blocked today to present his papers. All right, let's continue with the conversation. Today is Madaraka Day, the 54th one. It's coming after, President Uhuru Kenyatta launched the Madaraka Express. What do you think, from your analysis, where is the country right now with everything that happened yesterday? Quite a lot of positivity in the air with this Madaraka Express. What is your comment about the environment right now in the country?
I think by and large, Madaraka Express is a good thing. And I say if indeed it's standard, to the level that we require it.
Right.
There has been a lot that has been talked about the return on investment. I think that will take time. But if what we have been told so far can work out in terms of reducing the cost, the time, and also the volumes of goods and people traveling, I think it's by and large a good thing. But the whole issue that of politicizing development, I think, is what many of us and Kenyans, critics and fanatics of Jubilee must understand, that we cannot politicize development. We cannot then start saying that this is, Uhuru and everything. I mean, he will not fold it up if he loses elections and go with it into his, retirement. I think this, if you look at Vision 2030 and go through the flagship projects, you'll see a lot about infrastructure development. We, as Kenyans, should then stop being overly excited about this. But now it's high time that we push again and ask, where is the light rail system to improve transport in Nairobi?
Right.
Where are the transport corridors that need to open up this country? Where are these satellite, hubs and cities that we need to open up opportunities for this country? And the issue of SGR is going to be helpful. Of course, there are employment opportunities already in 2000s. And the issue of maintenance, the issue of of, running it is going to be a critical aspect of it. So it's not about the launch. It's about how sustainable are we going to make it a business model that supports the economy.
All right.
And if it's anything to go with the way other major, national projects have been managed, the issue of our airline going into losses of amounting to billions of shillings is something to look at. Then we must be careful that we do not run down, we do not mismanage that system. Otherwise, we will be running into losses. Already the issue of the cost of construction is there. So how do we make it viable economically? How do we make it a stepping stone? Injection in the muscle that we need to be vibrant again.
All right.
So the issue of politicizing development is not here or there. It's neither here nor there. And what President Uhuru Kenyatta, and I understand why he's basically struggling with this, is because for President Mwai Kibaki, he inherited a country that was in doldrums.
Yes.
And therefore, any little development would be noticeable.
Yes, yes.
Now,
Magnified.
Uhuru Kenyatta is leading a people that you would conveniently and perhaps fairly say they're used to development. They know what development looks like. And they had a president in Mwai Kibaki who was action-oriented and less of, an outspoken guy. Now, Uhuru Kenyatta is struggling with this, that the little he's doing is not noticeable unless he makes a big deal out of it.
Okay.
And that is a situation that we are not sorry for him, because he asked for the job and he got it.
And he got it. Interesting view. Victor, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, and especially considering that opinion poll that came out a few days ago saying that 71% of Kenyans feel that the country is going to, moving into the wrong direction, coming at a time that, we're celebrating Madaraka Day. Is there really anything to celebrate if this is what Kenyans really feel about the country?
Betty, there's very little to celebrate. But I'm not a keen follower of opinion polls, as it were, because these are opinion polls that tells you that Kenya is headed the wrong direction, looking at the government. At the same time, that opinion polls gives the incumbent president a higher rating. The two, for me, do not add up. So opinion polls, but
that's also debatable, right?
Looking at it, I think there's been misgovernance. The Jubilee government has really, to be kind, mismanaged the affairs of this nation economically. Now, coming to SGR, I've never met any person who is opposed to the SGR, as it were. But the questions that have been asked is about the cost and whether these locomotives that were brought in are really the modern locomotives that Kenyans wanted. So that is the concern, and whether we got value for money. It is not about opposing the project. As my good friend has said, Uhuru Kenyatta, if he is defeated, he will not carry it home. Or even if he does a second term, thereafter, he will not carry the project home. It belongs to Kenyans. And that's the very reason why Kenyans have every right to properly interrogate that project. It's a public project financed by public funds. And I'm told we are all in serious debts, individually and collectively, so that we have every right to interrogate the details of that project. I will not call that politicizing development. I think in the constitutional space that we are in, it is proper that every Kenyan interrogates every government project, whether it's development or so. To do that, for me, will not be to politicize, but it will be an entitlement to get to know the truth and the facts as they are. The truth is the standard gauge railway, that is the railway line, no problem with that. The problem is the locomotives which are brought, the train itself. It is not a modern train. It is not a modern train. It is not what, let me say, Kenyans expected.
What did Kenyans expect?
Kenyans expected an electric speed train. We are told this train does 120 kilometers per hour. We need a train that does 300 kilometers per hour so that in under 2 hours, you are from Mombasa, you're in Nairobi.
Someone might argue that, from Lunatic Express, it is sort of like a step forward.
Yeah, it's a step forward. Yeah, that is admitted. But saying, would we now then come again in the next 30, 40 years, we are doing another, it will have been proper to even do from Mombasa to Nairobi alone, but have a proper, a modern speed train. Even if there are only 2 or 3, then we move from there, rather than starting an old technology and then saying later on we will grow into something else. So,
Okay.
So, but having said that, it has happened. It's already
It
here
has
with
happened.
us. So we must look into sustainability. We must move forward and see how we are going to make this thing viable.
All right.
So that we do not, as my friends say, have it collapse and then we run into serious, because it's a loan which is still being paid. Another concern for me is I heard that this whole project will be managed for another decade by the Chinese. So it means it will take a decade for our engineers and the related professionals in the field to really understand and be able to manage.
But they have been going for training.
They have been going for training.
Yeah.
And that's why
The others
it
who are fully
surprises me
trained.
that we are giving the Chinese another whole decade to manage this project.
All right, Franklin, I'd like to hear your thoughts about it, that Kenyans did not get what they bargained for. Is that the truth? Is it like supposed to be, baby steps to the bigger picture? Is this the right thing that happened?
I think, to be fair enough, we have been presented, it's the analogy of a glass with some water. You have to choose to be an optimist or a pessimist, to look at it as half empty or half full. I choose to look at it half full. And why half full is because, look at it, it takes about 100,000 shillings to move a particular weight of load from Mombasa to Nairobi, and look at the hours that are involved with the dangers of the trucks on Mombasa Road. So for me, just halving that time to about 6 to 8 hours to move goods from Mombasa to Nairobi at a lesser cost of about 70,000,
Right.
and some coming to about 32,000. I think if it's practical, then if it's implemented, then it's a good thing. Halving the trip, again, in terms of time, if it's indeed, slightly just below 5 hours, and again, the volumes that you're looking at, the time that you're spending, and the cost, I think those are, for me, factors that make me, look at the glass as half full as opposed to half empty. The issue of the value for money in terms of the quality of the rail line, I think has been a discourse that has been, prosecuted very much in public. And again, we have institutions. I mean, if there is an issue that has to be looked into in terms of the cost, it's a matter that we have to put our leaders, parliamentarians, to task, then to use the relevant platforms like the Public Accounts Committee, the Public Investments Committee, to look into the books.
Right.
Now, the issue of capacity, I honestly think if there was anything that I would really be, happy about with these projects, is the issue of making it sure that Kenyans have the capacity to run it. And the issue of, revamping the Railway Training Institute, having some few Kenyans, young Kenyans going to Beijing, China, to study,
Right.
This, how to run this. I think it's critical.
Okay.
What the Commander-in-Chief was writing in yesterday was he was being chauffeured by a 23-year-old and 27-year-old young Kenyan woman. I think it's a good thing. And if the 10 years would be in terms of not siphoning, resources from us, but enhancing our capacity.
Right.
I think it's a good thing that we have to look at. The only issue that I need to clarify is that all of us have a responsibility not to politicize development. Either those ones that do not support the present government and those ones that support the present government must realize that this is a national project. This is taxpayers' resources. It is something that we all sat down as a country and have put through on paper, and we're implementing it through the Vision 2030.
Right.
So it's not a favor from President Uhuru Kenyatta. It's a job that he asked. and if it's even a bad job, he has to go to do it. And therefore, he also has the right to, belabor on it, which you cannot stop him, is freedom of speech. But to the extent that is going to be a determinant whether he's going to be re-elected or not, I think it's exaggerated.
It is exaggerated. That's what you say. All right, I want us to move the conversation back to where we started to do with governors presenting their papers today to the IBC. A civil society group a few days ago came out and said that a number of governors are unfit to hold office, and everybody now is looking to IBC. What will you do with all this information that we're giving? Is it coming too late? Are we expecting really anything, even with 60 days to the election? I'll start with you, Victor.
I mean, the civil society, unfortunately, there are people I respect, but what they're doing is without the law. They understand the law until a person is convicted and that person has exhausted, the appeal system. And in this case, you will have to start from a magistrate court, which ordinarily tries these matters. They're largely related to corruption. Appeal to the High Court, a second appeal to the Court of Appeal, and if need be, even to the Supreme Court. So after that, or if someone does not appeal, just sits after conviction, then you can now disqualify that person. But what is going on is hot air. Just because someone is being investigated, just because someone has been charged, is not a ground in law to bar anyone from contesting. So I can assure you, all those guys will be in the ballot, and the civil society will continue doing what they're doing. But having said that, I think as Kenyans we have accepted mediocrity. We have accepted people who are corrupt, and we enjoy corruption. I think so.
Franklin, I can see you're
I disagree.
objecting.
In a function, no, because you will see these people who are very corrupt are the ones who go into politics and they win. These people who are very corrupt are the ones that are cheered most in any public gathering. I can remember there's a day sometimes back when Sonko was arrested for some offense, and I heard somebody in the crowd saying, "Tupe mwizi wetu twende naye." So, provide that you can throw around some notes. We're okay, we don't mind. And I've been in the public and on the ground, and people provide that they really don't care, provide that a bit of it trickles down to them.
Wow.
They
Franklin,
don't care.
what are your thoughts about this?
Partially is right, but if you want to be, I know and I feel I pity the situation that we are in, because we have consistently moved away from ethos of nationalism to a system of governance where we have the praise singers, are very tribal in nature, and we have poverty levels that people want to have a quick fix around issues. We have issues of unemployment, so there's a desperate situation. But I choose not to be in that permanently. I think what the civil society, the Integrity Alliance did is good, that we begin this conversation. And dialogue around these issues is what is going to help us tackle them. And the move by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission yesterday to hand over the 106 names to the IEBC is again a step in the right direction. This is about having a dialogue around what kind of leaders do we need.
But we've been having this conversation, frankly, for so long.
I subscribe to the approach that we are better off debating and not getting solutions than getting solutions that no debate at all. So let us constantly talk about these issues. And we are where we are today, Betty, because of the conversation and the free speech that we engage in. And something about credibility, there's no middle ground. It is either you have it or you don't. You get it? Okay. There's nothing like middle ground. And the question that now the voter has to push to the elections management body is this, that yes, these people have not been proven guilty, but is there sufficient ground? And after all, this information is talking about the legalese. But you see, there are other institutions that have significance that we need significant, institutions that really investigate these issues. And by the time a file is at the EACC, the Directorate of Criminal Investigation has looked at it. The Director of Public Prosecution has also looked at it. And these are bodies that we are mandated. So they have an opinion about your credibility.
Right.
And I think it's important that Kenyans take that in regard, so that even if we push them to the ballot because the law is protecting them, the way the law played out in favor of, the ICC suspects, and they had to run for president and deputy president, they won. I think we have just to give Kenyans an opportunity and encourage them to continue electing leaders based on some, threshold, that we must always push the line and make sure that the threshold is actually rising. And like saying, oh, come on, we are like that. I have even heard Kenyans say, we are thieves. And I disagree with that. There is something that you can do. Look, and you can confirm this. Just look at the party primaries. When there was the argument, there is apathy, there was an argument that, people are not going to turn out and what. There was an estimate of about 37 to 45%, the highest turnout ever in party primaries. Leaders that lost in the party primaries lost decisively. And all of them, the people can tell you the reason. If there is anyone who's going to move this country forward, it's not the leader. The people have been yearning for change, and they have been aspiring that their leaders would lead them, and the leaders have failed time and again. So I think the Kenyan person is just revolutionizing internally and saying, yes, come on, I can drive this change. I don't have to wait for the leader to show me the direction, because I actually know where I am going, and I cannot therefore get lost if I start working towards that.
Interesting. And, it goes back to, Victor, what you said about mediocrity. That Kenyans, we are so used to doing this. Maybe it's now time that we're seeing sort of like a revolution. The question is, the revolution that we saw during the party primaries, will we see it, in the general election? Will we see all these leaders who have questionable past, fail?
You see, my friend is, I like his arguments, but he's living in the ideal situation.
But he's giving
happen?
A practical,
no, that is the ideal. That is
strategy.
The ideal. That is what most of us, I join him, that's where we want to be. That's what we wish would have happened. But I'm not a pessimist. I will call myself a realist. I say what it is as it is.
So what is it?
Because you wait for the elections. You'll see all these people who have been said to have integrity issues. They'll be in the ballot, and a good number of them will win. And those who will lose will not lose on the grounds of integrity. It will be on other grounds. But the law as it is that you have to get a conviction. The opinion of the DPPP and the anti-corruption is an opinion. It's a part of investigation. Then you go and present that to court. Then the other party has that fair opportunity to challenge. Those are still allegations. So that is why we are taking them to court, to be proven. So until we reach there and the court says, yes, you're guilty, the law presumes you're innocent. That is the law. That may not be, when the court finds you not guilty, it does not necessarily mean that the truth of the matter is that we are not dealing largely with the truth, the heavenly truth, that is. It is the legal question of your culpability. So, but that is the law. Assuming the other situation where, provided that you're under investigation, you will not run, or provided that you're being charged, people will just trump up charges and take you to court and block you. People will just subject you to investigations by ASCC, which is so far is being micromanaged by State House. Then people will just take you there, and on that ground alone, you're bad. Imagine the kind of injustice that will come. So sometimes it is better to allow due process. There is more justice, there's more benefit that will accrue in following the due process than in taking that ideal shortcut, because it will be subject to serious abuse.
All right.
But I agree that there is the legal issue and the issue of, administrative justice that needs to be, considered.
Right.
But we're talking about the Office of the Auditor General that is constitutionally mandated, you know, to determine how the expenditures of public resources has been, undertaken, whether it is with the required standards, it's within the law, or someone has, misappropriated or embezzled our funds.
Yes.
And these are not just any other opinions. They are significant opinions. And even in the legal question in court, these arguments will come out. Even in the Public Accounts Committee, in the parliamentary committees, again, that are other platforms that are of significant opinion. This, again, will be the basis. So my point is this. If we continue hyping on the issue of wanting the whole administrative justice go through, then it becomes very challenging, and everyone will take advantage of it. It's a good thing. But we have to encourage the voter to look at these reports and out of their own, wisdom, determine whether Victor or Franklin has these questions hanging on his forehead and he's seeking to, again, take charge of our resources, whether it's a good thing to give them the authority or not.
So it's
and
like
I think
about encouraging the voter.
we have to move
think
this
decisively.
ball to the voter, because the issue of the judiciary, the issue of justice is a complicated process that takes time, and of course the ones that have an intention take advantage of that, and they sneak through because they know at the end of the day I just have to convince the people, and the people now have to be smart enough and ask, does this guy with billions of scandals, with scandals worth billions, a good enough guy, a credible character to be bestowed the honor of taking charge of our resources? I think that's the most important question for me.
Okay.
So one point I've picked from what you're
Very
saying
quickly.
is that we need to educate our people to understand that they should be electing this kind of leaders. But if our people refuse, and that is their role, it is their duty to elect whoever they want, then they will continue electing these corrupt people. But again, the moment anybody is charged with the integrity-related charges, corruption, the first threat is that it is politics. So it's already politicized at that level. So even as you go to the ground and say you should not elect it, it's just seen you're playing politics. It's a difficult situation.
All right. Interesting views there. Just to bring you an update, Samuel Chepkonga, the pictures that you have been seeing on your screen, that's Samuel Chepkonga, the current Member of Parliament for Ainabkoi, has just presented his papers. And also we understand that Ferdinand Waititu has also been cleared to run. Remember, he's running for the Kiambu gubernatorial position. We also have Mwangi Wairia, who's also been cleared to vie. This has been happening in the last few moments. Remember that we're keeping an eye also, apart from the Madaraka Day celebrations, we're also keeping an eye on what is happening across different counties as the governors' aspirants present their papers to the IEBC. All right, so we also have what's happening in Kisumu. We'll have the pictures shortly. The celebration, the Madaraka Day celebrations, as you can see, they've already taken shape and they've started. We're waiting for President Uhuru Kenyatta to arrive in Nyeri so that the celebrations there can officially begin. It is Madaraka Day, the 54th Madaraka Day, and therefore we're waiting for the celebrations to begin. All right, so let's continue here with our discussion. And moving forward, I mean, that was an interesting conversation we had a few minutes ago. But moving forward, I mean, with the campaigns already in high gear, do Kenyans really know what they want in these leaders? We see the rallies and everybody's boasting that, my rally was attended by these thousands of people, but do these people who attend this rally really know what they are looking for, even as they attend these events?
Well, quite a tricky one. I think we have a very unique voter this time around, and particularly if you look at the other elections, 2007 going back, we have a more youthful voters register. And that just goes with the demographics of the country. And this kind of voter has proven to be very shrewd. And at some point, even confusing opinion polls. I'll give you an example. A week before Kiambu, Jubilee nominations, the governor was doing pretty well, but the beating he received at the party primaries and the kind of turnout that we experienced, I think that tells you that either there's something that the politician is yet to realize from the current voter that is going to be very tricky. And I think the elections outcome is going to be quite a surprise to many. I hold the opinion that it's not going to be a close shave. It's not going to be a close shave. It's going to be a very decisive victory to whoever is going to win the presidency. And again, I'm not seeing the possibility of a second round. It's going to be round one because we do not have a third, force that is quite strong enough to be even called a force. We have very minor candidates that command no following, very defined political constituent that you can say they'll be able to push the two horses to the finish line and eat out, a huge chunk that can make us go to the runoff. And I think it's important to continue studying the current voter. Why do I say so? 2007 going backwards, we had many in the registrar's role that understood what second liberation was, understood what the reform agenda was. We have the voters that are 19, 20 to about 25 that were born and they were, toddlers. In the second liberation period, and therefore they don't relate a lot to these issues, and they are relating to the present issues of unemployment, the present issues of insecurity, the present issues of poverty, and I think these are the issues, as I conclude, that the current voter is going to look out for. They have immediate needs that they don't necessarily relate to the reform agenda, the struggle that the likes of the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga are credited with. And it's quite a unique voter that we are dealing with.
All right.
But the clear issues that he's looking out for. They're looking out for leaders that will tackle the poverty issue. They're looking out for leaders that will tackle the issue of insecurity, the issue of unemployment, the issue of poverty that is, again, very high in that, demographic that are dominating the voters' role. And then finally, the issue of corruption, again, is going to play a big role because now we are in the age of information technology, and information is quite shared very fast. Kenyans understand very much about these scandals that have been around. They understand which leader could be responsible for not acting.
Right.
And I think, again, they can correlate. They can draw They can draw connections, dotted lines to how corruption is making them poor, how corruption is making them unemployed, how corruption is making them, not have a meal. That how corruption is, for instance, playing out in the issue of the Unga politics.
Right.
And I think these are going to be critical pillars in the minds of the voter when they make their decisions.
So it's things that are closer to them, not things that they've heard about or read about.
They're going to relate to the issues that affect them
on a day-to-day. Interesting view there, Victor. What is going to work for NASA and Jubilee going by what Franklin is talking about?
I think as at now, everyone is talking about high cost of living. That's a serious issue that should, in my opinion, determine the general elections. The high cost of living.
All right, Victor Jem, let me just allow me to interrupt you, but that is Dr. Evans Kidero, who's just going to present his papers at the IEBC. That is happening in Kasarani. Remember that like an hour or two ago, Miguna was blocked from presenting his papers because he presented his signatures in a JPEG format and not Excel. Therefore, that is Evans Kidero. They are just presenting his papers to IEBC officials happening in Kasarani. All right, going back to what you were saying, Victor.
So that the voter, I want to say what the voter should be looking for. And not necessarily what the voter will be looking for, because I don't understand the Kenyan voter. Because
you don't understand the Kenyan voter?
I don't understand. You see, some of the people we have seen in the party primaries who have been nominated, whether honestly or otherwise, are characters who should not be anywhere near leadership. And I want to give you an example of a governor. I have information from the Public Accounts Committee, Senate Public Accounts, that one of the governors who are doing very well in terms of governance is William Kabogo. And you see, he was beaten thoroughly. So there's a disconnect, I mean, between service delivery and politics. And I think, I'm sorry to say so, that politics still takes a better part of it than service delivery, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
My friend will not agree with me, but I say that's the reality. So that you will find that politics will still take center stage. In as much as we want to ask people, what have you done? But at the end of the day, somehow we end up just voting wrong people. In terms for NASA and Jubilee, NASA is running on a platform of fighting corruption and bringing down cost of living, which I think is working for them. Jubilee being in office, incumbents would really have to work hard to convince people, because these are things which are there. We agree there's a point even the president himself said, now what do I do? It's an admission that these things are happening, but somehow because of, he said, the law as it is, there's nothing much you can do about it. So there's rampant corruption. And now the voters, should the voters just vote again for a continuity of this rampant corruption? And a good president who is saying there's very little I can do. Again, when it comes to the president himself, in his office, he said at some point, you have the records, that his office is leading in corruption. But, you know, he has not fired a single person from his office since he made that statement. So I ask myself the question, is there again a legal bar that stops him from organizing his office?
All right.
Firing these guys who are corrupt in his office?
All right.
So those are legitimate questions that voters should look into. And when it comes to food security, I mean, we talk about drought. I mean, that's true. There was drought, inflation, and the rest. But what have we done? Don't we know that we'll be in such a situation? What has been the plan? If this happens, what do we do?
All right.
Yeah, because Israel, I mean, is terrible. Even we want to talk about drought and inability to produce food. How about Israel? Have we gone there to borrow? See, guys, what are you doing? Because at the end of the day, we cannot continue blaming drought every day and then again. People are paying taxes. We have people who should be responsible for planning for such eventualities. But we are doing nothing about it. I mean, that is, for me, a sorry state.
A sorry
to
state.
Continue being in.
Franklin, I want to hear your thoughts on it. I had asked him what really is going to work for NASA and Jubilee. NASA says, you know, we'll bring the cost of living down. Jubilee is saying, just give us 5 more years so that we can finish all the promises that we made to you. But we've still made some great progress in the 5 years we've been in office.
The issues notwithstanding, ethnicity in this country is a key determinant on the outcome of elections. And what would work for either side first, and you cannot run away from, is how well they mobilize their backyard and strongholds to make sure that there's a proper turnout and they vote in unison to their political affiliation. That is one. Two, for NASA, I think they have the benefit that this government of Uhuru Kenyatta, they have the advantage that the government of Uhuru Kenyatta has dismally performed as regards, the critical pillars that they rode to power, around. And one is the issue of Uwazi, which they are saying will run our government openly. I think this has been one of the most opaque, governments. Public officers like the Auditor General have received tongue lashing by the president, from the president himself, in an open conversation that he wanted critical issues of protecting public resources, dialogued around. And these are issues that NASA has to take advantage of. The issue of the rule of law as well, this government has not, has been tiptoeing on the, not on so good grounds. And it's an issue that, again, NASA is taking advantage of. And we've seen in their campaign messaging clearly that they're hyping on these issues. So as long as they can continue hammering these critical issues that Kenyans think Uhuru Kenyatta's government has not done pretty well on, and this is about even the representativeness and the national outlook of the government. If you look at, and it's not a secret, if you look at the plum positions and the plum dockets in terms of ministries, the ministers of finance and such have been, dedicated to the two regions that voted for Jubilee,
right.
and that is the Mount Kenya region and Rift Valley. And these issues are the ones that the opposition is hyping about.
Okay.
That you cannot say this is a government of all Kenyans when you have an equal representation of all these ethnic communities. You have had even the president himself going out of his way to try to talk about these things, saying when Raila Odinga had 20 ministries in the Serikali of Nusu Mkate, how many Muslims did he, for instance? This is a president who realizes that these are issues that are catching up with him, and the opposition is keenly taking advantage of it. So as long as they continue hyping on these critical issues, the numbers are rising. And as I said before, I do not subscribe to the school of thought that it's going to be a close shave. I think this is going to be a decisive win for whoever does win.
All right.
And the only thing now we can pray is that we have the institutions that are mandated to preside over this process, do make sure that it's a credible, transparent, fair, process that gives us a legitimate outcome. And whoever governs us 9th of August going forward is legitimately in office, so that Kenyans can again be able to heal faster, take the win or the loss magnanimously, and move the country forward as one unit.
Right.
But as long as the ethos of nationalism are missing on either side of the political divide, then I would still be a concerned Kenyan that we need to move closer and make sure that we're making decisions on what my good friend said is what he wishes the voters will determine.
So, Victor, objectively speaking, what do you think is going to work for Jubilee? Because Franklin has outlined what would work perfectly.
Objectively speaking. I thought you have been very objective.
Of course you have. Just, yeah.
What will work for Jubilee?
Yes.
What will work for Jubilee?
What will make somebody vote for them after 5 years in office? That they need 5 more years to finish what they started.
Pure ethnicity.
Nothing else. Really?
My opinion.
What about the projects that they've sort of like started or completed?
The projects that they've started or completed. I saw an article, I think it was by NTV, that was analyzing these projects. And for example, when it comes to road network, you find that when it comes to Western Kenya, there's none. And the projects you are talking about, largely there's corruption in each and every of these projects. That is why these projects will not endear them to the electorate. Because in every mega project that there is a mega corruption around it. So in as much as the project is good, but it's also being employed to loot taxpayers' money, so that it's countered by that. The corruption that you see those projects counter the positivity that it may have given Jubilee administration.
Right.
So that people see the only reason you are doing this is so that you can loot from us. And people want to stop that looting. So those projects may not work for them, in my opinion.
Okay. Interesting. Final thoughts, Franklin, about that?
On Jubilee getting elected, I think they have a head start in terms of the country has not, the political environment has not shifted a lot from 2013. We still have Mount Kenya solidly behind Uhuru Kenyatta. There have been questions around Meru and other parts, but you would say that Jubilee still has an upper hand in those regions. because we have not yet seen a critical point man in those areas for NASA. There are, of course, questions in Rift Valley, which I think we'll just leave it to the ballot. It's quite a dicey one to decipher now. We do not know to what extent Isaac Ruto will be able to influence the South Rift towards NASA. If Jubilee can hold on to their numbers of 2013, if those numbers were accurate, some have contested that they were not. If those numbers were accurate, and Jubilee holds on to those numbers, and then you have a situation where they actually are able to fight off incursion by the opposition into areas like the South Rift, I mean Kericho, Bomet, Narok, and Kajiado, then they would be good.
Okay.
But the incumbent is going to give them an advantage. They are pretty well resourced, and you have a lot of rhetoric. They are very good public speakers. President Uhuru Kenyatta himself is quite lethal in tearing into the opposition on his political podium. He has a very good running mate who is very shrewd operator and very articulate on the issues. And the way they have been able to work on their strategy as well, because this thing you have to also execute it.
All right.
And we have seen that the opposition in 2013 wasn't very good at it. They have improved a lot. We're seeing very good messaging from NASA. But Jubilee has a head start.
Okay.
They are incumbent. They have had the numbers going by the calculations, the numbers of 2013.
Okay.
They did quite a good voter
If things have not
voter
changed.
registration.
Yes.
We are yet to see the voters register because of the audit, but I think it is not going to be a close shave.
Okay.
I insist. It's going to be an outright win for whoever does it. And it's going to be round one.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for your time. I've been speaking to Victor Obondi and Franklin Mkwanja. Thank you very much for your time. And happy Madaraka Day. Now you can go and enjoy your holiday. All right. So we'll take a break right now. But remember, we're continuing with our coverage even as we wait for the celebrations